I'm Shannon Weber with Hive BayPack, and I'm here at CROI 2015 in Seattle.
And I'm Mitchell Warren with AVAC, and delighted to be here.
This has been so exciting the last few days, all the new data that's coming out.
You know, CROI for the last several years has moved from being all about hardcore basic science and treatment to really including prevention. And this year's CROI really is kind of at the epitome of where prevention science is at a mostly high point with some ruts along the road, but it is a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, some lessons learned. So yesterday there was this prep plenary session or poster abstract session, and during the IPRGay results, so pretty short 10-minute discussion, I heard three phrases used, and I want to talk about that with you. I heard event-driven, intermittent, and on-demand. And I think other people are saying sex-based. There's lots of different words. We don't quite know how to talk about it. Tell me your thoughts about that.
Well, you know, all the data presented yesterday is first and foremost a reminder that antiretroviral-based prevention can be hugely powerful and protective when used correctly and consistently, kind of like condoms. But all the studies to date have been about daily use of PrEP. So this IPRGay study in France and in Canada was exploring what is a novel dosing strategy. But we have to really be careful about our language, because I do worry about what people might think and do both as individual users and as providers and prescribers. So what the trial studied was a dosing schedule where instead of taking it every day, you were told if you think you might have sex, take 2 pills together within 2 to 24 hours before you might engage in sex. If you then have sex, take another pill 24 hours after the act, and then another pill 24 more hours later. So in the course of 3 days, you get 4 pills.
Okay.
What does that mean? Well, some people said, and the French group that led it said it's on demand. Well, I struggle with that, because for me, on demand PrEP is if I'm at risk, I pop a pill and I'm protected. That's not what the data shows.
Yeah, or even after, because for on demand, for me, I was like, maybe that's like plan B in contraception. Like, oh, need it, okay.
So we at AVAC have called it event-driven. It's driven by, or sex-based or sex-driven.
Okay.
It's driven by the event, because if you're not having sex, you don't need the pill. If you are having sex, it's event-driven. But now there is a couple of caveats in all of this. There's been a lot of debate over the last 4 years since the first daily PrEP trials came out about how much drug do you need in your system before it actually begins to take effect. We think that might be as much as 7 days. Does that French double dose up front really get you protected? We don't know, and it was a small study, because the good news is the study was so overwhelmingly powerfully showing that, with this 86% reduction, that it's unethical to continue the placebo control. But that's the good news. The downside is that the trial had less than 500 guys. So we really don't know who was having sex when and how. And frankly, if you're having sex at least twice a week, you're on the equivalent of daily PrEP. So when I leave CROI, my thinking, at least right now, and I think we're all grappling with this issue, is what do we tell people? I think the message is oral PrEP with Truvada is very powerful prevention if you use it correctly and consistently. Daily use is the one dosing schedule that is recommended and approved. It is a forgiving drug. We know already, even before the French study, that if you took at least 4 pills a week in the daily use and you missed a few days, you got protection. That's the message. You need to take a fair amount of drug, but you don't have to be perfect to be good enough with daily. Some people are going to look at that and say, hey, I'm going to try daily, but I know if I miss a couple, I'll be okay. Some people might say, you know what, I'll take it the French way, 2, 1, 1, and then again and again if I continue to have sex. We need to help people fit this into their lives.
Right, and I think even that concept of event-driven is if I have a primary partner who's suppressed, and so I'm not using a pill or other form of PrEP, and then I'm going to have an exposure where I feel I'm at risk, either my partner's viral loads got up or I'm having another partner, will it work event-driven if I'm just taking that dosing for that one event? And we don't know. So I think that's, again, some of the problem with the language and helping people to interpret what works.
I think all that language is tricky. The one piece of language, we begin to already see it on the internet. We see it in some of the early news. This is 20 hours ago this was announced, but already people say, oh, it's a party drug, I can just pop a pill. That's the most important language we have to stop. This is not a party drug. This is not something you just pop once in a while if you think. This is to be done in a structured way. It's not as onerous as people think, but it's not to be done just randomly.
It's still part of planning. I think that's what I get, which, that is for a lot of people the way in which we're, having sex, but there is some sex that isn't planned or you don't have control over, and we're not sure exactly how this type of dosing would fit into that.
Absolutely, and planning is really interesting. So one of the things that I think is important to note is the hypergay study in France, as well as the PROUD study in the UK, which was looking at daily, similarly though, had 86% protection, was with guys who were in both trials over 30 years old on average. And I think a lot of what we think about event-driven, it also means, can you plan your sex? Do you know when you're going to have sex, or do you know when you might put yourself at risk? And I think for older gay men in Europe, those trials show us that, yeah, they could control their experiences, and they could manage their risk. Compare that to the other trial. The one disappointment yesterday, of course, was tenofovir gel. Same active drug, tenofovir, but in a gel used vaginally for young women in Africa. That trial had a disappointing result, but it was with a much younger group. The women were on average under 23 years old. They were living at home with parents. They were not they were not married. That's a very different cohort. I think the takeaway message for me from CROI this year is that antiretroviral-based prevention is very powerful for men and for women if used correctly and consistently, and if you can control and manage your risk, you have a better chance of controlling and managing your prevention option, whether it's a condom, whether it's a gel, whether it's a pill. So I think there's a lot, we always look at the data is discordant, or condoms over here, PrEP over here. For me, the message is all very same. Correct and consistent use when you can get it gives you protection.
And then we have more work to do to understand how to really support people who have more periods of vulnerability to acquisition.
We are a long way from figuring that out.
Okay, so one last thing. Partners PrEP Demonstration Project. I loved seeing this. Being a perinatal person, believing in an integrated treatment and prevention paradigm.
Absolutely.
Tell me what you think about that trial.
I totally agree with you. To me, that was the best data yesterday. The FACS trial was disappointing. The two oral PrEP studies, those were all fairly controlled clinical trials, right? The Partners Demonstration Project was done by the same team based in Kenya and Uganda, led by the University of Washington. They had done a clinical trial that showed the best success before yesterday of a clinical trial. They had over 70% protection for serodiscordant couples. But that was in a clinical trial. They wanted to explore the much more important, I think, question of what does it mean in the real world? And so they went and they enrolled couples who were not in the clinical trial, but in regular care situations. And they offered the positive partner treatment if they were eligible to the national guideline. And if they didn't want treatment, because treatment is always an option, if they didn't want treatment, or if they went on treatment and were not virally suppressed, or if they were not yet eligible for treatment in the country, then HIV negative partner was offered PrEP. What's the finding? 96% protection. And that's not just PrEP. That is telling us that combination treatment and prevention is the answer. And everyone, we'd love a magic answer to this epidemic, whether it's PrEP or a vaccine or an injectable. There is no single thing ever, and the Partners Demonstration Project for me is the most compelling data that says it is not treatment, it is not prevention, it is when we link treatment and prevention and give people choices. And it's the dynamic within a couple.
I love it.
Now, that again was a fairly an older group, and can you extrapolate to the 23-year-old who's not in a married relationship? No, you can't. So we need to jump all over the Partners Demonstration Project. We need to make that the reality for couples, for men and women, for all
a
couples.
public health approach. This is a public health approach to.
And we need to be rolling that out at scale, urgently, at the same time. We have to recognize that that is not for everybody either. And we have, I think the other piece of data, we talk about the big numbers, 86%, 96%. Probably the single most important number yesterday was 4%. And that number is the incidence rate in South Africa of young women who were not benefiting from the gel, who are not in married relationships where they might benefit from the partner's approach directly. We need to do better. So we need to roll out those things we have for those who can use them, and we need to recognize that the tools we have are not enough, particularly for young people, women and men, and we need to develop better methods for the long term. So we're in an exciting place. We're in one of the, I think, most thrilling times scientifically, but the road ahead is as long or longer.
More to go.
And we've got to keep focused on that and not think that we're just done.
Thank you so much. I look forward to this evolving to the next phase of this conversation.
That is one of the cool things. If you look back over the last decade, the first PrEP trials were mired in controversy. People said PrEP wasn't ethical, that the research couldn't be done. Here we are, and we're talking about PrEP as part of a standard of prevention that can work for people, that can prevent an infection so that we don't have to work as hard. We have a lot of work to do to get everybody who needs it on treatment, but we have to keep the keep preventing, so we don't have more people in that pool to have to treat. So we are in a much better place, but we still have a long way to go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.